welcome. I'm so excited that you are here, and I am Tabitha Stitt, the self-help psychic. And if you are new here, welcome. I love that you're here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually tap into what I call spirit. To you, that can mean God, the universe, your higher self, your angels, source, goddess, however you want to think of it. To me, it's all loving, encompassing. It's an energy that is here to help all of consciousness. I have been doing this work for many, many years, for at least 10 years. I started off as a Reiki practitioner, and here I am. So has been a beautiful journey. And so what I'm going to do actually is the focus here is the best ideas for finding your unique natural gifts. So that is the focus for today's video, is the best ways for finding your natural unique gifts, for your unique natural gifts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask to receive messages and always for the highest good. I've been doing this again for many years, so I can get rather into this quite quickly. So bear with me. You can fast forward if you need to, however you want to do it. But best ways for finding your natural and unique gifts. So right off the bat, what I'm seeing is I'm hearing the stillness of the room, the space. I'm hearing the clock on the wall. I'm hearing a blower in the distance in the backyard. So I'm just tapping into all of these senses. And this is part of the message, is to tap into your own senses. And this is a way for you to find more about yourself, is utilizing what you already have, right? So we talk about these natural gifts, which we'll get more into the specific subject of it. But Spirit is wanting to actually talk about the more that you are tapped into your own senses, the more that you will be able to become aware of what it is that you're naturally drawn to, your curiosities, this awareness, this stillness that we experience. So the more that you practice observing and utilizing the senses that you already have, your sight, sound, hearing, taste, the vibrations, the energy, the feelings, the emotions, the more that you pay attention to these things that are happening within you without judgment, right? So you're just noticing, you're taking in to account what's going on, you're noticing. The more that you do this, the more that you'll be able to not only kind of get into your zone of genius, but you will also start noticing what you're more drawn to, okay? What you're more drawn to. And that's important. That's important because the more you focus on your curiosity and what calls your attention, the more that you'll be able to easily recognize that that's the path for you. Now, it's not just like any curiosity, right? It's something that we feel really, really drawn to, right? We feel pulled in. We feel like we've got to discover more. We've got to figure it out, whether it's a relationship or a job opportunity or a space, an environment, moving from one state to another. It's like we feel this curiosity within us and we draw to it. So the more that we tap into our senses, the more that we'll be able to notice and be aligned with that path. Another way for you to recognize or to step in or to discover more about your natural, unique gifts is the image that I'm seeing is actually a flower. And so to me, this represents, or what I'm hearing is growth, right? So growing and noticing your growth and your experiences, right? So your experiences and what you've learned in life, all of these experiences that you've had in life, you can use them because it's almost like, so the word I'm hearing is circumstances, right? So we all have different circumstances. We all have different ways of growing up. We all have different situations. We all have different families, and the word genre is coming to me. We all have these different chapters in our lives. We have all this background, right? And so oftentimes we may experience something traumatic or worrisome, or we don't know what to do, or something really scary, or perhaps we've had a life, luckily, filled with just total abundance and love. But even then, we have our own perspective on it, okay? And so the idea here is to use your experiences to learn more about you, yourself, And what is going on around you? What is going on around you? So this is really important to recognize, that you can actually use your experiences. And what does that mean, right? So you can either use your experiences as a way to victimize yourself, right? And I'm not saying if something traumatic happened to you, then yes, that is a state of being a victim in the moment, right? But you're also the state of survivor as well. You're surviving, you're listening, you're watching this video, you've survived that. And so you can use that story, that part of your life, to empower you, right? Or the opposite of that is to remain in that state of woundedness and that state of pattern where rather than using it for the benefit of your life, you're using it to sort of deplete your energy and go down a path that isn't best for you. And so the more that you tap into these experiences and learn from them, the more that you'll be able to recognize your unique gifts, right? Because you can use those because that is unique to you. No one else has experienced that. Even if they have experienced it, let's say it's within your own family and they have experienced it with you, they've witnessed something, then they still have their own perspective on it. They still have their own personalities, their own techniques. And so you want to use your own experiences to learn and to grow. And this is part of your story. This is part of who you are. So did you overcome it? Was this a willpower that you had to create and utilize? How else can you discover more about your unique strengths and talents and skills and strengths and everything else that it falls under that? Is taking an assessment, right? So taking a test. So taking an online an assessment or something to learn more about yourself. There's tons out there, but the two that pop up are the Myers-Briggs assessment. That's one word together, one assessment, Myers-Briggs. And then there's another one called the Strengths Finder Assessment, or Clifton Strengths, or Gallup Strengths. It has different names, but essentially if you look up any of those, that will also guide you on the path of learning more about you. Now, that's the one I recommend. I feel closer to my heart with that one. I feel like I know a little bit more about that. That's actually what I use in my own sessions, as well as I've learned about this as a licensed teacher as well. I've helped my students use this and learn more about themselves as well in the courses that I teach. So if you are interested, you can click on the links below to discover more about that as well. But Strengths Finder, so learning more about yourself and who you are and how you can utilize these traits and these strengths and these talents, and how you can create this energy, this flow, right? And to project it out. But the best way to learn and to find out more about your strengths is to actually get active. And I don't mean, physically necessarily. I'm not talking about working out necessarily. Maybe that's your thing. But and that's always a benefit, right? That's always a benefit. But what I'm saying here is we can sit all day long and just be in our own heads, right? We can sit and think all day long, and we can get inspired and we can learn, and that all is part of it as well. I definitely support that, and I love that as well, especially as a teacher. I'm always like, okay, learn. You have so much to learn about yourself. But there comes a time where you have to actually utilize that information and to put it out into the world. So you want to take what you're learning and you want to actually step out of your comfort zone, perhaps, and either apply it or utilize it, or figure out a way to manage it and to fill that void or that space within you, and also just to follow your curiosity, right? So I know I had mentioned this before, but let's say you want to take a course or you want to find a mentor. Okay, so you have to take action, right? You have to take action. You have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to do something. And even if you're like, I don't know how this is gonna benefit me, I have no clue, but it will benefit you, because if you're drawn into it, this is your intuition, right? A lot of times our intuition is just very like a spark of insight. It's very rather quick. It comes out of nowhere. It comes out of the blue, and that's your intuition. Now, your ego might get in the way, or your mind gets in the way and says, oh, you can't afford that. You don't have time. You have these other responsibilities. But Spirit, God, the universe is encouraging you to follow those steps and to go after that. You don't want to stall yourself. And a lot of times we have these doubts, right? So we do have circumstances, right? We do have responsibilities, right? And so we don't want to go bankrupt just to take a class necessarily. I don't know. There might be a way of figuring that out. Perhaps you take that class and you learn to make $100,000 within the first year. So there's all these different circumstances, but to always find a way that works best for you. And you're not going to know until you actually take action, right? So again, we can sit all day long and learn and feel inspired, which is wonderful, and that's important too. But you have to actually just do the thing. You just have to do it. There's a wonderful book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. So every human being experiences fear. And so this is spirit encouraging you to go after that curious thing that you think about, or that interest, or perhaps you thought about taking a class, or you want to learn more. And so a story that comes to me about my own life to help you understand this is that not everything is linear, right? We're not born with all of the answers, right? We have no clue. We just go breadcrumb to breadcrumb. We kind of figure it out. And we might have all these goals in our mind, and we have all these ambitions and aspirations, and we have these long-term goals and short-term goals. But oftentimes, like, we'll take a step, because it aligns with our goal. But then we might think, oh, okay, that was unexpected. I wasn't expecting to learn that, or to meet that person, or to connect, or to network. And now I'm on a whole different path, right? I'm on a whole different path. Now I forget what the heck I was even talking about, but that's interesting. So this is part of the process as well. It's just trusting, right? And being open, and not worrying what people think about you, right? Not worrying about what people think about you. And this is, I've been on camera, right? And I've done hundreds and thousands of readings and healings because readings are healing. But you have to just be vulnerable, right? And so now I remember what I was talking about before, but I think that's part of it too. Like, I do trust that this is Spirit's way of showing you, is that you have to trust. So in that moment, I forgot, right? But then I'm like, oh my gosh, I could stop the video. I could start all over, but I'm just going to keep going, right? I'm just going to keep rolling with it, because we all have to be in this state of vulnerability, and vulnerability is good, right? As long as you're safe, right? But I feel like physically safe, but like emotionally, you might be putting yourself on the line, right? But that's okay, because you have to push yourself forward, and that's how you grow and expand. And that's what this is all about with the self-help psychic, is personal development, self-growth, and self-awareness, right? So you have to push yourself out there. You have to try new things. You have to get out there. That's how you're going to discover your natural gifts, right? Besides just knowing what you're naturally drawn to, right? You probably are so naturally good at something that you don't even recognize that you're good you're good at it. It's probably just something that you love doodling. So for example, you might just love doodling, right? It's something that you love. Doodling, is that what I just said? Yes, doodling, drawing, and illustrating, and painting, and you have all these wonderful gifts. And a lot of times our most natural talents is where we should be focusing, right? But we're not really necessarily taught that in school, right? There's all these different, we won't even go there with education, but it's a different way of looking at life, and just using what it is that you love to do. And you might not notice your natural talents until you start doing something, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I have a knack for this. Like, I've always loved just drawing, for example. Not me personally, I'm just putting an example out there. And then you take a course, and you're like, oh my gosh, now I learned that I love collage art, right? And that is something that I do love to do. And so then you might figure out that, oh, now I'm going to start doing this. But then you have to figure out, okay, well, now if I'm going to make this as a living, if I'm going to make this as a job or a career, then I have to really put myself out there. I have to sell. I have to find a way to put my artwork out there, or my music, or whatever it is, right? And so that's all part of the plan as well. It's just experiencing that vulnerability. And I know Brené Brown is a beautiful resource for that, as she talks about vulnerability. So going back to what I was saying before, is this short story about myself is I've always wanted to be a teacher. I've known that my whole life. I've always enjoyed being by myself, right? I've always enjoyed, like, I would come home from school and I'd be like, oh, thank God, no one is home. No one is home. And I don't know why. I don't know. I think maybe because we're all sensitive to energies, right? But maybe I was ultra sensitive. And so, when there's tons of energy in the home, it's like, oh my gosh, it feels so nice just to have time by myself and quiet. So anyway, I've always loved being by myself. So notice what you've always loved, right? And you might not be able to remember everything, but just little blips of your memories of things that you've always enjoyed doing, right? So I've always known I wanted to be a teacher as well. I don't really know why, but here I am teaching, right? I'm teaching, and I'm a licensed teacher. So I went to school for that. I went to college for that, and I became a licensed school teacher, and I taught for 7 years. But then along the way, I had an issue growing up with my mom, and I witnessed her as she had experienced a completely sudden and unexpected addiction to this drug. And she has told me that she wants people to know about this in her story. So it's okay that I'm sharing this because it's a part of my story as well. So that was a pretty horrific and scary moment for all of us, but she conquered through, right? But the idea here is that that's part of my experience. And what that led me to was I wanted to look more into healing and how can I help others heal? And I didn't really even recognize it at the time. But then I stumbled across this magazine because I'm obsessed with books, and it was all about Reiki. And I had no idea what it was. I didn't even know how to pronounce it. And that led me to becoming a practitioner. That very first time I experienced that, I experienced clairvoyance, which is crazy. I didn't even know what it was. I told the people in my class what had happened, and they all looked at me with like their jaws dropped open, like as if, like, what? And I didn't know. But to this day, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, that was totally clairvoyant. So that led me on to then, speaking with another psychic medium and getting a reading. And she said, yes, you're supposed to be giving readings. And so then that led into this and then trance work. And here we are. So with all that being said, I'm not really totally in a trance. I'm just kind of giving a psychic reading at this moment. I'm giving like impromptu messages and readings, and it's a universal message, right? But that's not linear. I mean, I could have never predicted that. But what happened was I just followed my intuition and I used my experiences from before, even though I didn't realize it at the time. But it's like, how can you actively use your experiences? Now, those traumatic events or those things that really stand out to you, whether they are traumatic or not so much, those things that have stood out to you, you can use them and think, why did that stand out to me? And how does that help me? How can I help others as well? Oh, I thought I heard my cat, which I did. Um, so that's all part of it. And then learning about your personalities and your personalities. Well, you might have more than one, right? But then your strengths and your talents and your skills and learning more about that, right? And then you can also ask others as well. Like, what do you think is my natural talent? Or how do I work best? Or what do you notice in me that is positive? You can ask other these questions, and that's helpful as well because you're getting an outside perspective. But it's also helpful to know to not put all of your marbles in one basket, right? So you don't want to put all of your emphasis on just one person's opinion. You want to also certainly recognize your own feelings about it and think, okay, well, that makes sense to me, or maybe I agree, or maybe I disagree with that, right? And so I feel like there was another thing to help you learn more about your natural gifts and your talents, but just looking at what you're naturally gifted with. And I know that sounds sort of like cliche, but truly, like, look at what it is that you love to do. You can absolutely make that into a career. You can. The difference is when you do it, you then transition into taking that. You might have to add skills to it, right? And then you have to find a way to sell it, right? You can sell it. You can just start off small. You can start off presenting to your family and saying, would you like to buy this from me? And then moving on. But it's a long journey, right? But it's a journey of your soul's purpose, because your soul's purpose is all about utilizing what it is that you feel in your heart and your soul and going after that. And that's what it's all about. And yes, we have things that come along the way that kind of maybe perhaps stall us or stifle us a little bit, but that's always going to happen. That those challenges are always going to pop up. But the more that you push past them and the more determined you are and the more perseverance that you utilize and that you use, the more that you will see that your life unfolds beautifully and these synchronicities start to happen more and more. So that is the message for you in this moment. I know that I start to speed up very, very quickly, but if you're interested in receiving a very specific psychic soul reading from me, please contact me. The links will be below. You can utilize, I keep using that word utilize, it's driving me nuts. That's the word of the day, right? Look up that word and find the meaning for yourself. That is my little challenge for you is how can you apply what you already have within and then just project it out there? But those are the best ways that I can come up for you in this moment through spirit and always for the highest good. I hope this was helpful for you in this moment and interesting to say the least. And again, if you're interested in learning more or working with me, please reach out, schedule a reading. And if you have questions, go to tapthestit.com/podcast and you can actually submit your own question there. Allow it to be open ended, and then that way we can help others as well. So, thank you very much for watching and listening. And let me know if you have any questions, and I will talk to you later. Bye bye.